Hi, I'm Jeff Hajek, and today I'm going to be talking to you about who is going to be on your continuous improvement leadership team. And this is the next lesson in the How to Build a Continuous Improvement Culture course. Before I get going, just want to remind you if you do happen to find this useful, click that like button and then also subscribe and click the notification bell if you want to make sure you never miss any new episodes that I post here. So, as we get started, I'd like to talk a little bit about the goals, what I want you to take out of this lesson. And the first thing is that I want you to understand who the key leaders are on your continuous improvement team. So there'll be a lot of people that are going to have an involvement in, and there are a lot of leaders throughout the company that are going to have some kind of influence in it. But you do have a set of people who are going to be in charge of this program. I want you to understand the responsibilities and roles of those people on that team and what they have to do to keep your system going forward and keep you on the path to developing this culture that you're looking for. And then finally, I want to talk about the other people in the company who are going to have continuous improvement roles that are going to support the key leadership team, the key continuous improvement leadership team. So, what are the main responsibilities that you need to have assigned out to this team? So, there's a lot of stuff that has to get done, and there's a lot of core functions. So, as you get into this whole concept of continuous improvement and building it as a culture, you're going to find that almost everything you do is going to have a flavor of continuous improvement woven into it. So eventually, almost everything you're going to have, you're going to start asking questions about PDCA. You're going to have metrics running things. So you're going to have this kind of fabric of your DNA is going to be really integrated with continuous improvement. But there are functions that you need to do to get to that point. And the first one is you got to create the system. So it's not going to happen by accident. There's a lot of things out there. The whole Shingo Prize is really a packaged up system. It's kind of a what they say you need to have in place. I have the continuous improvement development system, Toyota production system. There's a lot of systems out there that are going to power this culture that you're trying to develop. The second thing is you have to be able to develop the team's continuous improvement skills. So the team, if they're not like smart on continuous improvement concepts, you're not going to make any progress because you do have to rely on your teams to make a lot of these changes. And any good continuous improvement company, a company that really has a culture in there, they make sure that their frontline employees are actually doing continuous improvement projects. And they have just a slew of these projects are happening all the time because their teams are empowered to make changes. And if you're going to do that, you have to have the right resources and library to manage it. And you also need to be able to maintain your internal company knowledge. So all of the different processes you put in place, and not talking about the processes for your production, I'm talking about all of your continuous improvement processes. So you have to be able to put all these things together, all the forms and all the different tools that you're putting together, the training materials, the reference guides, the books, the libraries, the videos, training kits, all the stuff you need to collect up. And it's a core function of the program leader or the person who's really in charge is going to be gathering this stuff up and then delegating out to the team, but they have to build this live. And as you start making changes, you're going to have a handful of projects that are really critical to the company. And these are going to be done by your core team. So your core leadership team is going to take on these most important projects and they're going to be running these projects. They're going to be managing them, chartering them, doing all the planning, sustaining them, all the stuff that has to happen, auditing them. That's all part of your continuous improvement core team's function. This team also is going to find that they need to be constantly staying ahead of the curve. So as they train people, more and more people are going to catch up to them. So if they don't learn new skills, if they don't increase the skills that they currently have, and if they're not really aggressive about getting better, eventually you're going to have this core team that isn't able to teach anything new. So the core team, the core leadership team for continuous improvement needs to be really sharp. They need to make sure that they have a lot of skills and they have to stay ahead of this group that is going to be chasing them over the years, trying to keep up with them as they make new systems, they roll out new processes and all that sort of thing happens. If they kind of have any kind of like lull in their progress, eventually, the teams are going to come up and ask them questions and they're not going to be able to answer. They're not going to be able to say what to do next. So you got to make sure that the leadership team is really aggressive about learning. You also have to support Kaizen. Now, as you get better, more and more, the company leadership, not the continuous improvement leadership, they're going to be doing their own Kaizen events. They'll be asking you for help. You might go and mentor them. You might teach them how to train their team. You might even do training for them so that they can just focus on the project leadership. That's all going to be eventually the teams have to be taking on the leadership role on their own projects with support from the company's core continuous improvement cadre. All of the planning, though, all this function, there's two types of projects, and some of the projects are just going to be quick on the spot, make a change. You have a production line goes down, and the lead just says, "Hey, let's go and take care of this project we want watching for." That kind of stuff you just do on your own. But Kaizen events take a lot of resources. You want to get cross-functional teams. You might need to have engineers in there. You might need to coordinate maintenance support, or facility support. It takes a lot of planning, and the core team, the core continuous improvement team, has these functions, and one of their functions is to make sure that they are doing a good job planning things like steering committee, making sure that the policy deployment that's out there is turning into projects and that the projects are staffed properly to keep your PD on track. That's all a function of your core leadership team for continuous improvement. And then finally, as you keep getting better, you're going to have to make sure that you continue to refine and improve your tools. Any set of tools you get is going to be a very stock, standardized, generic version of it. And you're going to find that all of the work you're doing internally is going to need some tweaks to it. So you're going to have to modify it to match your company's personality, and you're gonna have to match the tools that you have available to you and the skill sets you have available and how aggressive you want to be in different things and where your priorities lie. So no tool is going to work standard just out of the box to get you where you need to go. They're going to do a pretty good job. So if you take them and just put in the basic generic version of any of the tools like 5 Whys or 5S or standard work or setup reduction, all those things are going to do a good job for you. But you're going to need to dial it in for your own organization. And that might even be things about like, standardizing where you keep equipment to do this stuff. There's a lot of stuff you'll have to do, and all that refinement makes the whole process easier. Now, let's talk about specific people who are involved. And when I say involved, I'm talking more about integral to it. I'm not talking about just who are dabbling in it, but the very first person, and this is the person that is going to be most likely to make or break any continuous improvement organization or any continuous improvement efforts in an organization. The person most likely to be linked to their success is the president or CEO. If they look to be fully committed, and not just to look at it, they have to be fully committed. So when you go into their office, are they following 5S principles in their office? Are they asking questions that let everybody know that they have a really good view on things? If somebody wants to do a project, will they ask the question, is it linked to policy deployment? Are they going to, ask what the data is on project, and people make assertions or assumptions? If they show that they're really involved in this, that's a big step. But the other one is, are they going to give the support and resources when their continuous improvement support team comes to them and asks questions? Or how are they going to side when there's a conflict about something that has to do with production versus projects, or any types of situations where managers are telling people to pull out all the stops and get this stuff done, and it violates processes, and the continuous improvement managers are saying, hey, we don't want to do this, it's not a good practice, it's sending the wrong message. This person, this continuous improvement, or the CEO, is going to have to take a stand and say, I know it's going to hurt us short term, but it's going to make us a much better company long term. They're going to be the ones that are most critical. After them is a program leader. Now, this person should be primarily, early on, it should be a specific person in a single role with no other responsibilities, because there's a lot of work to do to get everything all set up, to do training, to do development of the systems, to be out there on the shop floor in the production areas all the time, making sure that things are going right. It's a very time intensive job. And if you're doing it as a secondary role, it's going to be a problem. Now, down the road, I'm talking fully down the road once you're in, the later phases, phase 5 or phase 6 where you're really ramping up, or, in your steady state, you may be able to get by with the program leader being a, director of continuous, not like a director of operations or something like that, where they can have this as a secondary role, and you may not need a full-time person, and they have some staff engineers, some continuous improvement staff engineers who are working with them, but you may not need a full-time leadership role here. You may be able to kind of delegate some of the responsibilities that this person would normally do to the continuous improvement team. I don't recommend that, but sometimes it does happen that way, that there's, a push to have this start to roll out. Don't do it early on. Do it later if you really feel the need to. I don't recommend it though. Now, the team is going to be a little bit much for one person to have depending on the size of the organization. So if you're, 20 or 30 people, you may only have a program leader who's doing all the functions for the whole organization. I like to think of it about one per every 100. And early on, you might maybe want to have two or an extra person. So if you have 100 people, maybe two people helping roll it out. If you have 300 people, maybe four people on a team, but a little bit extra early on to be able to get things rolled out. But the steady state is really about one per 100 because it's enough to do the training, to do the support, to do all the new projects, all that kind of thing. So the continuous improvement staff is also going to act as your primary trainers to teach the company how to teach their own teams. And as you get better and better at continuous improvement, you're going to find that this is a great way to train people. So when I say people, I'm talking about the management, the up and coming managers. So you have a supervisor who is, wants to get promoted. You send them to the continuous improvement team for 6 months, and they do projects. They learn. They get really good at this sort of thing, and then they go on to a management role. I like seeing people hire out of this group on a temporary role. So you're going to have some people who are going to be permanently assigned, but you want to also have people come in temporarily. They learn from the permanent party. They get really, really good at continuous improvement and running projects and understanding the nuances of the systems so that when they go out and become managers, they have a great understanding of what's being asked of them in that new role. Again, rotate them through there, but you make sure that this is a positive thing and not a negative thing. So if somebody goes to this team and they kind of stagnate there and then go back to a worse job, it's a problem. You want to make sure that you are hiring first from this group. So you only send your best people with the idea that you want to promote them in there. And the same thing happens to your resource team. Now, it's the same kind of principle. And if you think about continuous improvement, the whole goal of it is to become more efficient. And if you become more efficient, you need fewer people doing a job. So the resource team is where you send those people instead of firing, because you can only fire people once before everybody else realizes that if they help make improvements and their job's at risk, they're not going to help make improvements. But if they see that when a team is really successful and things get better, that people get moved up to a new role, they have a great project environment for a while, and then they go and get moved into lead roles or, supervisor, those kind of roles, any kind of technical job like, engineering tech, something like that, where they're getting into a better and better job. It becomes desirable to go to this resource team, and it's a way that you can pull people out of their roles when you make improvements. The resource team's function is to help with projects so they can go out and they can do timing for standard work ahead of time. They can do data collection, all that kind of thing to get ready for projects, observe things, videotape processes, count inventory, all the things that you need to do to get ready for a project. They can do that work and help out project team leaders. They can also backfill. So if you want to take somebody out of a job and send them to a Kaizen team, a resource team member can go and work station 6 on your assembly line for a week, because these are really skilled people and they can be trained up pretty quickly. So with that said, there are some other groups that are going to help out a lot. And these people are going to be key to your success, but they're not going to be integrated. So the standard company leadership, these are department heads. This is your paint manager, your assembly supervisor, your Widgetron department head. So these are all the people that are going to be using the continuous improvement tools to make their own departments better. So they don't have the say in how the continuous improvement systems run. They are the users of the systems that are developed by the continuous improvement team. You also have frontline professionals. These are engineers, your senior marketers, your uh, all the different, accountants, all the different people who are in those kind of support roles, and they often have functions and skills that are really useful to put onto project teams. And then frontline employees, of course. So the frontline employees are going to be the ones who are often the biggest impacted by projects, but they're also the ones with the most understanding of how processes work. So if you really want to get good and have continuous improvement be effective, you need to be listening to your frontline team members because they know what is really happening and they know better than anybody else how processes are really done. So you need to be listening to them or you're not going to make progress. Now, there are support teams that are going to be helping out a lot, and I put them separately because they're going to be involved in everything. But most of the time, it's not going to be making decisions about it. It's going to be you need to run new power drops as you move machines around, or maybe punch a hole in a wall to avoid having to walk as far, and you need to put a door in, something like that. So facilities, IT, HR, maintenance, all these groups that do support functions are going to be really integral to your continuous improvement efforts. And then there's a final one, and that is the small business owner. Now, small business owners are going to be the company leadership. They're going to be the CEO. They're going to be the program leader. They're going to be the staff engineers, the continuous improvement staff engineers. They're going to be the resource team. So they have a lot of hats they wear, and they need to understand what their role is. But the whole function that they're going to be doing is trying to really get the same types of continuous improvement systems built because small businesses turn into large businesses down the road. And as small business owners are rolling this stuff out, the more refined they are and the more they try and follow as much as they can of all kind of the teachings of how to roll out in a company, roll out a continuous improvement program, it's going to make it a lot easier as they grow. It's going to make them more successful now, and it's going to make it easier for them to become a large company. And as they bring people in, if you have those systems in place properly, it's going to be easier to bring people in. And kind of the trap you fall into is because you're doing it all, you don't necessarily need to document everything the way you would if somebody else was doing it, and eventually it catches up to you. So that's the leadership team that is going to be involved in your continuous improvement efforts. Have a good day.